I'm still trying to get myself adjusted to the unaccustomed feeling of peace and security which comes after such a battle.
Listen, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
And the glow from that fire can truly light the world. Light the world. Light the world. Light the world.
Good evening, and welcome to Today in History. I'm Matt Datillo. Today is March 21st, 2010, and this is episode 434. Well, the quest for 500 for 5 continues. For those of you who are new to the show, that means I'm trying to produce the 500th episode of the show in time for the May 16th, 2010 5th anniversary of this podcast. Those of you who've been listening for a long time are probably tired of hearing about it, but I do want to remind those of you who can do something for the show that this show is done at the expense of other things, including overtime at work, and I know economic times are hard on at least some of you, but thanks to those of you who have taken the time to donate or order a DVD. If you're interested in doing either of those things, please stay tuned at the end of the show. Today in 1963, the federal prison on Alcatraz Island, located in San Francisco Bay, California, was closed. The Rock, as the island became known, is probably the most famous prison in the U.S. federal system and remains today, more than 45 years after its closing, the stuff of legend. Alcatraz Island was named by Juan Manuel de Ayala in 1775 while he was exploring San Francisco Bay for Spain. He named the place La Isla de los Alcatrazes, or Island of the Pelicans. Except for the birds, the island was barren and surrounded by swift currents. The island was all but ignored until 1847, when the U.S. Army first noticed the value of the Rock as a military installation. The discovery of gold in California the next year spurred the Army to build a gigantic fortress on the island. When finished in the mid-1850s, the fort housed 4 gigantic 15-inch cannons, capable of engaging enemy warships at a distance of 3 miles. The cannons were only used one time against an unidentified ship. The single shot missed. The Army began sending prisoners to Alcatraz in 1861 during the early months of the Civil War. Between that time and 1933, thousands of military personnel would be imprisoned on the island. In October 1933, the Department of Justice acquired the island and turned it into a federal prison. The first civilian prisoners arrived in August 1934. Alcatraz became the place where the worst of the worst in American crime were sent to pay their debt to society. Al Capone, Machine Gun Kelly, and many others found themselves on the windswept Rock. The federal government claimed that escape from Alcatraz was impossible due to the tide and strong currents of San Francisco Bay, as well as the fact that the closest point of land was over a mile away and that the average temperature of the bay water is 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Despite this, there were 14 escape attempts involving 36 men, 2 who tried to escape twice, during the federal prison's 29-year history. All but 5 of the prisoners are accounted for. 23 were caught, 6 were shot and killed, and 2 were drowned. The remaining 5 are presumed to have drowned, but there is no conclusive proof of this. Despite urban legends to the contrary, it is not impossible to swim from Alcatraz Island to the mainland. Dozens of people have made the swim under monitored conditions. Also, the rumors of man-eating sharks in the bay are not true, as the sharks in that area tend to be bottom dwellers of a smaller variety. By the early 1960s, Alcatraz had become the most expensive federal or state prison to operate in the nation. The federal government decided that other, newer institutions could serve the same purpose for less expense to the taxpayer. Another issue was the effect the pollution from the island was having on San Francisco Bay. The prison was closed on March 21st, 1963. The island has attracted attention off and on again since 1963. It was actually occupied by members of the American Indian movement during the 1970s. That could be an episode of the podcast all in itself, and probably will be one day. No single prison in the United States replaced Alcatraz. Instead, the worst of the worst are now sent to several federal prisons. There's a supermax facility in Colorado. There's also a federal prison in Marion, Illinois, which is not too far from here. In 2004, the lovely Kelly and I made a trip to Texas with my parents, and Interstate 55, for those of you familiar with the area around Marion, runs pretty close to the federal prison. As we came up on it, my mother looked and said, "Oh, there must be an airport over there." And what she was seeing was one of the guard towers, which are very tall and glass enclosed, not what you would imagine. And I told her, I said, "Well, I don't think anyone's flying out of there." But it is kind of a depressing sight. That's it for this evening. If you'd like to get in touch with me, please feel free to do so. My email address is mattstodayinhistory@gmail.com. You'll find a transcript of this and previous episodes of this podcast at mattstodayinhistory.com, along with a donation link which serves two purposes. One, if you'd like to donate, which is always appreciated, and two, if you're interested in ordering a DVD of past episodes. The cost for the DVD is $20 U.S. in the lower 48 states and $25 U.S. everywhere else. You can find me on Facebook. Please do a search for Matt Dattilo. That's MattDattilo. There are other Matt Dattilos on there. I'm the one who belongs to the Louisville, Kentucky network. Thank you very much for staying subscribed, and have a good evening. We'll talk again soon.